Your life.
So today we're not talking about housing. We're talking about real life, what people are actually Googling, what they're thinking about, what they're stressed about, and that all shows up in their internet searches.
Right, right. We were talking about this, like these are the people that pay. Like these are your tenants. These are the common people that are they buy stuff in the retail. They go to offices. They rent a lot of times, and sometimes they buy. But I think it's important that we really dig into what's really going on with the consumer.
Yeah, terms like recession, debt, credit card help, cost of living, and auto loan rescue are all really Googled terms right now. So, what you have to look is people aren't Googling right now how to grow their portfolio. They're Googling just how to make it month to month, essentially.
Right. As you guys know, so obviously everybody's worried about tariffs, everybody's worried about inflation. But what we're starting to see is we're starting to see a pullback. We've been talking about flex payments. We've been talking about people are financing things like groceries. The car sales are down. There's a lot of things that are down. And what does all this mean? All it means is if you have something that you've invested in, any kind of real estate, Airbnb, obviously, which is kind of it's a specialty deal, right? Like people go to Airbnbs on vacations and stuff like that. So these are things that you should be watching because these people are starting to pull back. We're starting to see that in on with Netflix subscriptions. We're seeing that with gym memberships. This is what the consumer starts to do first. It's really important that you watch these. I guess it would be red flags if you're an investor.
Absolutely. So let's first discuss housing affordability versus the real economy. And I think it's interesting because Tucker Carlson was just at an event last week, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard this, but he was really talking to what people's needs were. And he was saying, I don't give a crap about the GDP. I care that my kid cannot have a full time job and buy a house by 27, not even by 35. So, these are what real Americans are looking at. And that really is true. And a lot of people really, even people on both sides of the aisle were feeling what he was saying because they give us all these numbers like GDP growth and unemployment numbers and all these things, but really what people are looking at is like, I can't afford groceries,
Yep.
I can't buy a house, I'm really strapped on cash, we don't have any extra money. And that's really the numbers that people are looking at, and it's reflected in these Google searches.
Right. And I think that a lot of times we talk a lot about real estate and when people bought and values are down. Of course, everyone knows this. So is there a crash? Absolutely not. I don't believe there is a crash. However, if your whole, let's say, financial outlook was based on income growth, revenue growth, occupancy going up, reduction of concessions, you really, really need to start to take a hard look at that because we're seeing with our 10,000 tenants, we're starting to see kind of cracks as well. We're starting to see people that have paid on time and are having little blips, right? And in some cases, they've been replaced by AI even. Even though this is really not about AI, this is about, consumers are pulling back. They're starting to take a look at what would be, I think, wants versus needs, right?
Yeah, and I think that people are feeling like both parties aren't addressing the needs of the middle class, right? And and Tucker mentioned that, and I think it's valid, because they're talking about all these different political issues, whether it be transgender issues or whether it be you know whatever, right? But they're talking about inflation, but they're not addressing what's really going on in the everyday person's life. And I think that that's going to be the next political movement because so many people are hurting right now. And it really is the thing that's most important to people. And they will tell you when the economy's not doing good, a different candidate will win, and that's kind of what happened with Trump, because the economy was not good under Biden. And while Trump is making some differences, people are still dealing with these day-to-day issues, and it's going to become even more apparent because, as we talked to you guys before, you're having this gap between people that have a house, bought a house 2020 or prior, have a low interest rate, and people that are renting or bought a house in 2022, 2023, because, you know, the people that bought in 2020, they have a little leg room to absorb some of this inflation, where people that are renting or that bought later, they don't have that room to absorb that inflation. And that's coming out in these numbers.
Well, and I think the other thing is the big beautiful bill. Even though it's passed, the criticism is that it helps the wealthy, right? And I think that's true.
Yeah.
And so I loved what Tucker was talking about, because it's the same thing we've been talking about. You guys all know I've got two kids, both in their 20s, both renting, both saving money. Actually, we're talking to my your older son last week.
About buying a house.
Yeah, about buying a house,
Yeah.
right? And of course, like even though it's my son, like all kids of this age, Danille started saying, "Okay, well, let's start looking at houses." So she was pulling up houses, showing him what the down payment was, and he's like, "Holy moly!"
Monthly payments,
Yeah,
because when you really break it down, even at these rates, I mean, the monthly payment is very expensive. And
right.
you actually, he was surprised, right, that it was as much as it was.
By the way, we're talking about $400,000 homes at they were $3,000 and $4,000 mortgage payments, right?
Yeah,
Not including the expenses.
it was about $600,000 homes, but yeah, they were about $3,500 a month before HOA, tax, and insurance.
Right, right. And so that's the issue, right?
Mhm.
And then you guys know Bankrate, bankrate.com did a really good survey last year that said, not including mortgage, what does it cost to actually own something? And they said it was 18 grand a year. Now, of course, it's more in other areas, and cheaper in some, but generally it's about 1,800. So what is that? That's 1,500 a month for property insurance, for utilities, for any kind of work that maybe that place needs. That would be for property tax, which is under attack right now. So
Mm-hmm.
that's in addition to the mortgage. And so that's why, as you guys know, we were watching Face the Nation this weekend, and they're just pounding on Powell,
Yep.
right? They want these rates lowered a lot, and I know isn't this week or next. I think the Fed's meeting.
Yep.
It's going to be very interesting to see what they do. There's a tremendous amount of pressure on the Fed, which is supposed to be independent. But as you guys all know, people that refinanced or bought, several years ago, they're sitting on sweet loans, like loans that they're never going to move off of. I mean, Danille has a deal in Scottsdale where her rate's 2.8, right?
Yeah, it's like 2.7 or
2
something.
point, okay. So, I mean, she's looking, she's got a lot of equity in it, and she wants to actually, it's a condo, and she wants to actually buy a home, a rental home. So, yeah, so she's got hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in equity, but she can't sell it because the payment's so low, and
Yeah.
it cash flows, right? So a lot of people are in this scenario. They either have a really low mortgage payment. I was working out this morning with Matt, and he was telling me that him and his wife, they bought their home years ago for like less than 300 grand, and they have no payment,
Right.
right? So he's not going anywhere, right? And there's a lot of people that are sitting in that scenario too. The reason I'm bringing all this up is because there's trillions of dollars sitting in this trapped equity that needs to start moving for the economy for people to fill it. Because when you sell something, you refinance something, there's a transaction of anything. The mortgage person gets paid, the realtor gets paid, the title people get paid, contractors get paid. So all that stuff is kind of the ripple effect of lower rates. And so I think that's why Trump's pounding away. And that's why I love what Tucker was saying, because we've been talking for years. I want my kids to have that American dream, to buy that home, to build their own equity, to pay their mortgage. which pays down their loan, all that stuff, just like you guys do. It's always a stair step. You rent, then you buy. And if you look at where we are today, the majority of people's wealth is sitting in their home.
Well, and Tucker had a good point because what he was saying essentially is that no kids can afford a home right now unless their parents help. And that's 100% true because, people are making 70, 80 grand a year. You're not going to be able to save for a home. You can't afford a $4,000 home payment on $70,000 a year. The only thing you might be able to do is once you get married, you might be able to buy a home together at these prices, but then both parents are for sure going to work. And it obviously is going to impact how many kids you have and everything else because you're just so tight, right? But then to your point with the rates, so lowering rates would help everybody, not just people buying homes, because right now your credit card interest rate is at 20 to 30%,
That's a
which
gouging. They're
is
gouging
insane.
you guys.
Yeah, well, that's what Tucker was saying. He was saying essentially they are gouging people. There should be a cap on the credit card interest rates. But the problem, see, it's a two-way street though, because that sounds great, right? Just make a cap on the interest rates of the credit cards. But then the credit card lenders will be tighter on who they lend to, right? They won't just give a credit card to anybody if they can only charge 15%. And that's where it kind of gets dicey. It's like, when you open credit to more people, you have to charge higher rates because you have to absorb the risk, right? And it's the same thing with mortgages and anything else. So as the economy contracts, and if a lot of people do start tightening credit standards, it will be harder to get a credit card. It will be harder to get a mortgage. So it's like this two-way street of it sounds good to cap rates at a certain, extent, but then like everyone doesn't get one. So
Well, right. There's a couple other wild cards here because it's interesting. Like I was talking to Matt again this morning, and I said, so what about gold? What about crypto? He's like, yeah, we're in that stuff, and especially in crypto, they've done really well. So the only reason we're bringing this up, and we're not pushing crypto, is that he said that he had a bunch of money in his 401k and he moved it and put it. It's still, I think, in the 401k, but it's in crypto, and it's like more than double.
mhm.
And so this is an interesting thing to watch because it's not just a young person's game. And so if somebody, it's kind of the equivalent of home equity, right?
Yep.
Like he was talking to me, like I'm in a great position. I'm in a great position, and so it is something to watch because as people need cash and as people pull back, it's going to be really interesting to see if they're hedging their positions, taking some cash out, all that kind of stuff. And that is that's a wild card that did not exist in 2008, 9, 10, 11, during all this stuff. Now, gold, last time we did Limitless, um, as you guys may have known, 1 year ago, by the way, Limitless is next week. So for those of you guys that are going to be there, we can't wait to see you. It is going to be action packed. If you haven't gotten your tickets, you can get those still on Ken 10. That's a discount. But we'll be there next week. I can't wait to see you guys. But the interesting thing is, I went back and looked because Charles and I were like, what's changed from 1 year ago? And one of the big changes is gold. And last year, gold was around 2 grand. This year, it's over 3. So gold's gone up like $1,000. I am not pushing gold. I'm just telling you that we're watching all these different levers. And so if somebody who has crypto, somebody has gold, they're feeling very different. They're not just hanging on this job and the mortgage. So the equity in their home. So let's take a look at one of our sponsors, by the way, which is Monetary Metals. It talks about how you can actually lease gold.
Gold is near all-time highs, but appreciation isn't the only way to benefit. Monetary Metals, you could potentially earn a yield on your gold, paid in physical gold, without selling it. Here's how it works. When you lease your gold through their platform, pre-qualified companies pay to use it under strict guidelines, like renting out real estate, but with gold. Instead of paying to store your metal, you may earn up to 4% annually in gold. You stay in control and you can choose which leases to participate in. Monetary Metals handles the due diligence, lease terms, and all the administration. Thousands of investors use this approach to grow their gold, not just sit on it. Visit monetary-metals.com to learn more. Leasing gold involves risk and returns are not guaranteed. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. Please review all risk disclosures at monetary-metals.com. Visit monetary-metals.com/Ken to learn more.
So let's talk about the number one Googled thing, recession, right?
Yep.
Like, so why would that be number one, right? Like, just think about the mind of the person that's typing that in. Or am I in a recession? This is number one, guys. This is, why would they be doing that?
Well, they're saying that there's low unemployment numbers right now, but that's not what people are feeling. And we talked about this on a previous show, is it doesn't really matter what they're saying, it's how people are feeling. And people are feeling very strapped for money, so they feel like they're in a recession.
Well, right, because they are. And by the way, they do not care. Tucker was right. That's an interesting clip. They do not care about GDP.
Right.
That's what Trump and Powell and I don't know about you guys, but most people don't even know what it really means. It's not bad. It's one of these economic indicators that's I think important, really, 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 really big picture. But at the end of the day, if people are pulling back on things that they were used to last year, they're not happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And they're feeling uncomfortable to spend money. So if you're looking to start any kind of business or expand any kind of business, if you're in a business that's not really a necessity, you're going to see pullback. Like, I talked to my hairdresser, she's seeing, clients are waiting a lot longer to come in to get their hair done. Estheticians, like anything that's just not critical, like groceries or even medical appointments, people are putting off because, they're really trying to save on money. And we saw this, the last time we had a recession. So you're just going to always see people pull back. So it's not a great time to do a business where, it's a luxury. Like, that's why Airbnb, one of the reasons Airbnb is not doing that great, because people are pulling back on vacations. People are opting for hotels that are cheaper versus having, a full kitchen and a yard. When you're on a budget, you just don't care as much about that stuff.
Right. And if you're in that pickle right now, so some of you might be, I'm telling you, you should take a look at any loans or any credit cards, anything that you're, say, paying more than 8% on. And I'm telling you, this is the quickest way to helping, is to get out of that, because a lot of people are just sitting there racking up these balances, and all they're doing is paying the absolute minimums, and sometimes not even that. And it's just compounding, at these massively. I completely agree with Tucker on this. He just went off on these people that are making a lot of money at the expense of the consumer.
Yeah, the credit card companies, but also if people don't have credit cards, then they don't have money to upkeep their lifestyle. I think one of the things that has happened over the course of the last 10 years really is credit cards have become such a mainstay. Like 10, 15 years ago, not everybody paid for everything with a credit card, right? Like, most people paid with cash or check, and occasionally they would pay with a credit card. So now, our whole society is running on credit, and people haven't modified their lifestyle to what they actually make. And they've been able to kind of get by doing that with these lower rates, and just, things weren't as expensive. But now that people are getting squeezed, I really think that these luxury items that people still were spending money on is going to be, because, you can only get so much credit. And if you also start to default, then you can't get any more credit either. So, this way people live on credit cards, I mean, our society is really going to have to come to terms with that, I think.
Well, I think it's happening right now. Like real estate in a lot of ways can be considered to be the top of the pyramid. And so you have to look at all the stuff that builds to that, So obviously credit card delinquencies, credit card debt, debt is crushing people. It's crushing cash flow. One of the things that really shows up during this period of time, because it's not all bad, guys. So in other words, when you start to see stress and people pull back, there's lots of businesses that do extremely well. So what would those kinds of businesses be? They would be like the trades. When you fix your people are going to fix stuff more than buy new. So you're going to see Home Depot, you're going to see Lowe's, you're going to see these Ace Hardwares. You're going to see that go like that, because instead of buying a new home, they're going to actually renovate that kitchen or build that new deck or whatever it is. And then the other one is autos. So autos is one of those ones that really is interesting because a lot of people, there's a lot of transactions around autos. So obviously you've got the new and you've got the used. And so right now we're starting to see this exact opposite of what we saw not very long ago. We're starting to see a stack up of new inventory for autos, right? So that means that their margins are coming down. The problem is that you still have this interest rate problem, right? And so you're starting to see auto loan defaults. You're starting to see repos. You're starting to see that kind of stuff. And what will happen is that people will start to hold on to their cars longer, which is not what the new car guys want, right? They want people to drive something up to, let's say, to the warranty and then go buy another one. I mean, that's kind of one of the points for these warranties. And that's why they don't push the warranties out for a long period of time, because a lot of people do just exactly what you probably do, which is, oh, the warranty's going to be up, I'm going to trade my car in. That's part of the system. And you're going to start to see more and more and more people. I would imagine you're going to see these aftermarket warranties. But a lot of this is predicated around the car payment. And I think this is important. People solve to the monthly payment, just like we were talking about with Kyle.
Well, and I think it's important to note that that's one of the top searches was auto loan rescue.
Yeah, right. Which is why I brought it up, because I knew that. And so you start to see people because they need transportation. They need transportation, obviously, to get to their jobs. A lot of people. So this is going to be very, very, very interesting. And that's why I think this Fed, this interest rate, all this pressure on Powell. I think there's not a day that goes by that Trump doesn't bash Powell, right?
Yeah.
The great thing is he has no control over this.
But also, you have to remember, it's not just Powell making the decision. So even if he swaps Powell for someone that is more friendly to him and wants to lower rates, you still have to get a committee vote to make the decision.
Correct. And by the way, Powell's until next May anyway.
Maybe.
And it's supposed to be independent. Yeah, maybe. But the only way he can be removed is for cause. And I think they're trying to build a case for that. But it's pretty hard to do when reported inflation, I guess, is less than 3. And unemployment is also somewhat stable and those are the 2 mandates of the Fed. So it's going to be really, really interesting. But I will tell you, the one thing that will really move the needle of the economy are lower rates. And so I know you guys, some of you are going to go to Limitless. You're going to see George Gammon there. George is going to talk about why he thinks unemployment could go to 10%. And why he thinks rates are going to go down. And he's got a pretty compelling argument about it. So I'm still processing some of it because I don't completely, like you guys, don't completely buy into everything I read or hear or listen to. And a lot of people come from different points of view. So I think it's going to be really interesting, especially this year, to see, what the gurus are saying. Larry Lepard, Jim Rickards, Kiyosaki, Gammon, Jeff Snyder, they'll all be there. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see kind of their spin on, what is the remaining 2025, and which a lot of people think tariffs are going to show up during the inflation piece of the tariffs are going to show up. And I guess tariffs kick in on August 1st or something. Right. And so you're going to have that. And then really next year is kind of the gloves are off, right? What are rates going to be? What's inflation going to be? What's wage growth going to be? What's unemployment going to be? I think AI is going to be a game changer. And a lot of people, I was watching the founder of NVIDIA. He said, it's basically like an internet moment. And then for a lot of you don't remember this. I remember this. There was a time when I grew up, we didn't have these game changers, right? Internet game changer. And I think AI is the same thing. There's going to be people that are that know AI and people that don't know AI. And so it's going to be very, very interesting. So that is one way for you to stay ahead of this.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Well, cheers.